Hi there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about watercolour pencils and I'm going to show you 12 different ways that you can use them. Right, just briefly a little bit about watercolour pencils. You can get them from discount shops and they're just too cheap, and all the techniques I'm going to show you probably won't work with the cheaper ones that you get from discount stores. It's best to go out and buy some decent ones. These are going to cost you about £2 each, but they last a long time, and you're probably best to get about 6 good pencils rather than 260 rubbish pencils. Right, so I'm going to show you how not to do it first, because this is, I think, the way that most people think you use them, and this is, no, you don't ever do this. Right, this is not, you don't do this. Put my glasses on so I can see. Right, you don't, I'm not going to do it, you don't dip it into the water and use them. If you do that, you then degrade the wood. If you can see the wood around the pencil, so never dip them in. What you need, basic equipment, you need your pencils, you need a small brush and some water. And there's a salt technique if you want to use salt. I'll explain that in a minute. Right, 12 different ways. Right, the first way is to get watercolour pencil. Let's get a couple of colours, and you basically just draw with it. So let's just do a bit of a drawing, and you can either use one pencil or you can use 2 pencils or 3 pencils or whatever you want, and then you dip your brush into the water and you soften and let the colours blend on the paper. So you're introducing the water to the watercolour pencil rather than the other way around. So the second way is to crosshatch. I think it's important with any material that you actually show the material you're using. It's called truth to material. So if you're using paints, it's got to look like paint. And if you're using watercolour pencils, I think you actually want to show that they're watercolour pencils. It's got to have a bit of pencilness about it. So one way of doing that is to use cross-hatching. And cross-hatching is like this. And again, you could just do one colour, or you could cross-hatch other colours. And again, you then put the water onto the paper and you allowed the colours to blend. Now, I did this earlier and I'll show you. This technique here was just me drawing here and then using the water to blend it. And then I use cross-hatching here. This is what I'm saying about I actually want it to look like pencil. So there's the cross-hatching. Another technique is sort of stabs and dots on wet or dry paper. So if you can do a nice texture, or you can do lots of dots. This is when it gets really noisy. Hope your neighbours don't mind. Now you can do that, and if you see, that's where I used the technique here, because I wanted to get the sense of stubby feathers. And you can then again blend that. The alternative is to wet the paper. So there's just wetting the surface, and you flick into it. And can you see, as soon as the watercolour pencil hits the water, it starts to dissolve and you get quite nice kind of scooshy lines. So as I say, that was where I used that technique there. The next one is to just use the brush and you actually collect the colours from the pencil. So let's just draw a shape. And what I do is I use my brush and I'm actually using the pencil as if it's ignore that. That's another technique. And then I just paint with the water, the paint that I've just taken off the pencil. And again, you can wet another pencil and you can then use that to paint. So that's quite a good way of using them. The next one is to basically just a bit like this one. You wet the paper and get it nice and wet, and again you just draw into the surface, and as soon as you draw into the surface you find that it starts to just dissolve, and you can blend and push the colour around in the wet surface. And I used that actually here on there. I wet that part of the cockerel and I wet that bit there, and then I just drew into it. I because I wanted quite a strong colour, so it works extremely well. As you can see, it's quite sort of strong colour. So that's that one. Oh, this one I love. It doesn't always work, so I'm going to hold my breath here. Right, let's get 3 colours. This is where you get 3 colours together, and you hold them like that, and you've got your brush. Get your brush nice and wet, and you pull your brush so the one colour goes at the base of the brush, the other colour goes in the middle of the brush, and the third colour goes at the top of the brush, and you get them loaded up, and then you just sweep them across. It's not worked that good. Sometimes it works brilliant. We'll have a go. Oh, no, it has working. And you get a kind of a lovely mixture of colours and texture, and that worked here, there, where I wanted this kind of nice rough texture, and I let the 3 colours mix together. Next one is number 7. You wet the end of the pencil with a brush, and you then draw with the damp pencil. So let's just that. So I wet the pencil again, and then you can just draw with it. Now this was where I wanted these lines. In fact, I'll do one. If I do one here, that'll probably be the best thing. So I wanted some nice kind of vigorous lines. Now also, because I've used the brush to take the colour off the pencil, of course I've also now got colour on the brush. So again, I've got colour on that because I've dampened the pencil, and I've got colour on that. Next one is, although I love this one, this is my favourite one. Right, so you get a pencil, let's do that one, and you get a nice damp brush, and there's your pencil. You flick the damp brush over the pencil. Now you can either flick it into onto dry paper, or you can flick it onto wet paper, and it kind of explodes and goes all scooshy. It's lovely. And I used that, where did I use that? I used that here and here. I wet this and flicked it on, and I used that dry. So you've got a good combination. It's great in this sort of situation because it's all kind of lovely. I wanted that very sort of scratchy thing that a chicken would have. Next one is just using a little bit of stuff that you've got around the house. One is salt. If I get a bit of salt in the hand, and again I want quite strong colour, so I'll just take it off the paint. This takes a bit of time to work, so you might not see it straight away, but I can paint the colour with my brush, get nice strong colour, and then just drop the salt into it. What you'll get when that dries, you'll get a really nice kind of speckly kind of effect. Next one is, now you're only allowed to use this one. You're only allowed to use this one if you're a grown-up. If you're not a grown-up, you're not allowed to use this one. So you want to get a craft knife, or in my case, a scalpel. And with this one, you can take, I better get a drying one this time. I'm going to wet the paper, and I'm going to scrape off that. And what it does, oh, I love this one. What it does is, as soon as the scrapings go into the water, then they dissolve. Also, what's quite useful, if you go into your kitchen cupboard and you've got a cereal packet, again, you want to wet, don't dip it in because it disappears, wet the edge of your cereal packet, and then rub the watercolour pencil across the top, and that's great then because you've got kind of lots of lovely, you can stamp with it a bit more, and you can twist it into different shapes. And I used that, where did I use that? I kind of used it around here, again, to get this kind of lovely squishy, and I used it a bit on here as well. And the final way to use it is to actually make what I call a paper palette. So if you, any of the colours, if you make a square, rectangle, there, and all your different colours, however many pencils you've got, it doesn't have to be on the piece of paper that you're working on. It can be another piece of paper. Then you get your brush. What you've then got is you've then got a palette. So you can take that and you can paint with that. Take that and you can paint with that. Wash your brush. You can take the blue and you paint with the blue. That's because I've used that one, so I've kind of exhausted a bit. You can paint with the blue. You can use that and paint with that. And if you see, here's my sketchbook here, and in the back of my sketchbook I've got a paper palette that I've made with these watercolour pencils. So it means if you are doing sketching and you're out and about, all you actually need to take with you is a paintbrush and some water, and then you can use what's at the back of your sketchbook and then use that for painting. So there we are, 12 different ways of using watercolour. Have some fun, and thank you for watching. Bye.